Hi everyone, I hope you're good guys. Today new video about how to make techno like kind of drum code style, modern techno, stuff like that. Basically this session is the template modern techno that I've done during my live stream and that you can find on my website. I will put the link in the description, and today I'm gonna go more in detail on how I create the stuff, which audio effect I use, and etc. So for this project, of course, there is only Ableton Live Stock Plugin. So before I try to explain and see in each track what is inside, talk about the arrangement, let's listen a little bit the track. Alright, so if you want to listen to the track, the full track, link in the description of my website. You can find the SoundCloud, you can buy the template. And now let's dig into, so all of the samples that I've used in the template are coming from one of my sample packs as well. I will put the link in the description. So how I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna talk about a little bit each element and separately, and then after I will talk about a bit of arrangement and stuff like that. Alright, so let's start with the drum. Usually I always start my track with drum, and I always start my track with the kick, of course. So for this one I choose one from my library. I'll just pitch it down a little bit, just matter of taste. And then I have a bit of saturation to beef it up. Then after it's more like mixing EQ here. So this one is just to remove annoying frequency. Alright, and EQ 8 just to boost a little bit the low, and then the high to make it help cut through the mix. And then I wanted to make like kick reverb style, and so I use my rack that I've done. I will put the link is gonna appear in the corner if you wanna watch it, how to make easy kick reverb. This rack is just perfect, and just I modify a little bit the pre-delay of the rumble chain, and basically it's kind of making the reverb offbeat rather than is accentuate the offbeat effect, which is really nice. And you need for that a little bit shorter decay than what is usually. You can make longer, but it might mess around with everything. Even though you tighten after all, it can mess around. I prefer shorter decay. Then I've got another EQ just to remove this annoying frequency again. Alright, use speaker to listen this frequency because on the headphone you can barely hear it. And then just a utility to make mono or everything which is under 132 Hz. Alright, so that's for the kick. Let's move into the close hi-hat. So if you check here, it's like a basic pattern, and you can see, yeah, just the one offbeat is it's gonna be a bit louder to give this driving pumping effect. So the hat is just sample as well that I've pitched up a little bit. Same here, EQ, I remove the low frequency I don't need, and this annoying resonance frequency that you can often find in hats and ride and stuff like that. Then let's move on open hi-hat. So the open hi-hat is basically playing off beat as well. It's accentuate basically what was doing this close hi-hat, kind of 909 hat, and I just had a bit of saturation. And EQ, a quite drastic EQ, but on the overall mix was still sounding good. So yeah, you lose a bit of character, but you have a bit more of clarity, so you have to compromise a little bit, but that's fine. If you listen solo, it's not sounding that good, but in the mix overall, it's fine. Then I've got what I've called shaker, which is this part, sorry, which I use basically this pattern. So as you can see, it's like same kind of pattern than the close hi-hat, except that like it's like crescendo going up until the offbeat 1 and then going down and then starting again. So yeah, that's really giving like accentuating this drive pumping effect overall. And for this one, I just had a little bit of delay to add a bit of, to spatialize the hat and to add a bit of rhythm, and then saturation is just to make it louder. And then after I get rid of all the annoying frequency, a bit of reverb, and then I use this delay as a stereo effect, as a hard effect, and yeah, just to, because the close hi-hat, the open hi-hat, and the clap and everything is more or less in the center, so this shaker is nice to put it on the side, and anyway everyone is doing that and it's sounding great. And then clap. So clap is kind of layer with one, which is like pitch 1 semitone up, more like for the high frequency, and one a bit pitch down for the, it's two different clap, but they have both different frequency spectrum function, if I can say so. And yeah, I think, and then so I just add, like usually this is like kind of, usually I either mix as I go or come back after, but it's never like big things, you know, like just a bit of saturation to make it louder and sometimes a bit brighter. And same with the EQ, you know, I remove all the low frequency that I don't like and I don't need, and I always try to boost a little bit one interesting part of the sample or the sound, but this always vary from one sample to another. And yeah, usually when I have this is after I start to build my track, you know, because now from this month I already have a solid base and I can build something on top of that. Just let me show you quickly the ride event is coming after. Ride is same, it's sample, and yeah, just remove this frequency. Yeah, that's the kind of frequency that first you don't hear them, but then when you start to hear them, you cannot just unhear them. It's like all the time you're like, oh, damn frequency. And yeah, this, I don't know if you're familiar with this resonance frequency that you have to remove. It's something really useful, especially with the ride and hats and stuff like that. You always have like one or two resonance frequency which are annoying and that you don't really realize at the beginning. But yeah, and the thing is, the good way to do that is you take one of your EQ and you do like this, and you listen the track and you listen where are the annoying one. So there is plenty of tutorial about that, you can check. And then just same down the photo shaker, stereo effect to widen the stuff. Alright, so with the drum we are pretty done. There is just, this is more like a drum fill snare roll that I use. I haven't made that rack by this time, so otherwise I would have used it, but yeah, it's just like a 909 snare. Same as usual, cutting the low, adding some saturation and reverb. Nothing fancy. And then clap. So basically, of course, there are tries. Same is like a 909 clap, but yeah, some EQ, saturation, some delay to make it longer, a bit of big reverb, a little bit like, and overall saturation to just make everything a bit more louder. Alright, so that's for the drum. So usually when I've got that, when I've got my drum pattern, I try to build something to start to find an idea. But sometimes one thing I'm doing sometimes is I'm creating noise, and like basically I use the clap and the hats noise that I dig into a lot of reverb, and then I sample this reverb tail and I freeze and flatten, sample it, loop it, and then make it an ambience from it. So I've done a tutorial about that, how to make FX transition, and basically it's what I've used, but then this time I put the SFX kind of in the sampler and loop it, and yeah, just is like, the process is, it's just like amp and pedal to make things gritty, and I filter to don't have too much frequency, to don't take too much frequency on the spectrum, a bit of reverb, and same thing with the hats, same process. So yeah, that's cool. That's helping me most of the time, like at the beginning to fill the blank, you know, because at the beginning if you just have the drum, and always when you're gonna add some melody or stuff like that, you're gonna still feel it's empty. And adding that, like, yeah, kind of fill the blank. And on the end when you're gonna finish track, you will almost don't hear it anymore. But it will be just like slightly on the background, but it's helping. I mean, it's helping me. And I've done the same with the pad and with the ARP that I'm gonna show you. And I use, so the same. I put the ARP I play the ARP once, put in a ton of reverb, and then sample it, and I add this rack. I will put the link in the corner of the video, how to make any sound or kind of bad sound. And yeah, and like this, when the start track is kind of already have a mood, and yeah, it's helping. So now let's talk about the ARP. So that's the first synth idea who came, which is basically a simple chord, ARP, up. Melodically, it's nothing fancy, but do the job. And it's just like a sine wave with a bit of pulse wave. And then you have some noise to add, you know, this, when you open the filter, you get this nice noisy stuff, which is really nice, especially after when you add saturation, reverb. It just make a big difference. So yeah, and then you have as well some sub, which is basically a kind of sine wave with a bit of harmonic, and just to give a bit of body to your sound. And then it's going through a low pass filter, 24 dB per octave, the PRD, which is like kind of emulation of Moog Prodigy, a bit of drive resonance, and this filter, as you can see, is modulated by the amplitude envelope, and So to get this kind of very plucky effect, you need to put your sustain down 0 and just put attack to 0 and then put like very short decay and release. But then after, and then like this you can map and play after with the decay. Alright. That's really good for breakpoint, but we'll come back to this later. And then yeah, I add a bit of LFO as well on the pitch just to give a... It's very slight, but it's giving a very nice slight pitch modulation. And then after it's just processed to make it lively, like to make it louder and to make it breathe a little bit. Alright. Some delay, classic reverb, EQ. So that yeah, here you have automation. That's why the filter or EQ is like this. And yes, and that's it for the harp. And then after the harp evolve along the track, but I will come back to this later. Alright, next element is Synth Pluck, which is kind of, I like to call it Enrico San Gilano synth sound because it's kind of, I use it by making with the rack I've made. I will put the link in the corner. And yeah, let me just go. Bit of EQ. Same here, you know, cutting the frequency you don't want, saturation, a bit more intense this time to make it a bit more crunchy. Here a very short delay, you see it's like, it's on 1, it's like just adding a bit of slight delay and like, just to give this slight ping pong delay, to don't be too dry, like just a reverb. And then yeah, I pass to just get rid of all this frequency. I don't wanna mess around with the bass and kick. And same here, I remove this frequency that I didn't like it, boost a little bit where I want it. And then drum bass. Yeah, I could have used kind of overdrive or saturator again, but I don't know why I use drum bass. And like to drive a bit everything, you know, the bit of transient. Yeah, to distort the sound a little bit more. And then we have the Synth Shot, which is playing later on. So yeah, basically to get this kind of sweeping synth, I've took wavetable with the pulse dual and so 12 dB octave clean, nothing special, and yeah, you can see it's like very slow attack to get, and the filter is moving as well, modulating slowly to slowly open the filter. See, it's just nothing fancy, but it's working, and bit of yeah, effect as usual to beef everything. Had some delay for effect, reverb, and then just EQA to make it cleaner. And then you have this, but I will come back later on the arrangement. And you get this kind of now synth sound. So I'll come back later what is doing this sound in the track. I will. So now Synth Fx 2. So this one is more like sweeping effect. So you cannot really hear without all the effect, but as you can see, it's like sine wave, and the filter is modulating like this. It's starting like very low, and it's modulating by the envelope 2. So as you can see, like it's gonna quickly go up, because here is like it's a positive value, 63%. So it's gonna quickly go up and then going down very slowly. You see 20-second decay. All right. So you can see, and this is how you get this sweeping effect. And as well, the same modulation is applied to the oscillator 1 position and to the unison. You see, unison is kind of important to get this granular effect. And then the sweeping is, the modulation here is just helping to get this sweeping effect as well. Then it's just some phaser, overdrive. Yes, I put it mono because the unison was making it wider, and I didn't want it to have something very wide. I wanted to have something more mono that I can pan from left to right. So that's why I bring it back to mono, and then adding some saturation, delay, and reverb for like the classic combo saturation, delay, reverb, to just basically making you sound a bit more alive. And yeah, just a bit of gain, a bit of EQ. That's the pan that I will come back later. Then yeah, like a crushing saturation, and I add another delay to make it even to make the sound even stand longer. All right, now let's jump into the Perc 1. Okay, so Perc 1 is, that's the try one from my sample pack. Remove the frequency I didn't want, you know, like always around cutting everything which is under 200 or 180 around, because you don't really need it. Saturation to beef everything, reverb to give some breath and space, and another cut just to be sure I remove all the low frequency. And yeah, that is for Perc 1. We'll come back later about how it's playing. Perc 2, it's alright, another same kind of treatment, saturation to beef it up, EQ to remove low frequency and resonance, reverb. And this one I stereo is it a little bit. Like this one was mono, and this one mono like in the center, sorry, and this one is more like on the side, just to have like a little bit of variation, to don't have everything mono in the middle, makes things a bit more interesting. All right, then the next sound, it's Synth Horn Low, which is like kind of very cinematic, epic French horn like you can find in all of the movie trailer and stuff like that, and which is used as well a lot in techno. And same is sawtooth with some noise, a bit of sub to add character. G-tune is very important as well. It makes it stereo, and it's add as well, yeah, this nice detune and granular effect that I like. And then yes, you got low pass filter, 24 dB per octave, frequency very low, but it's modulated by the amplitude envelope, which is like around 45 milliseconds, which is usually very nice to get this kind of brassy effect, you know, like kind of brass horn effect. If you send around 45-60 milliseconds, you always get this kind of stuff, this kind of brassy, rather than it works as well as this, but I like to add a little bit of attack. And yes, so that's same. The basic sound is pretty dry, and then remove frequency, boost some, beef everything up, add a bit of delay, reverb, classic. You start to know me a little bit. Overdrive, because at that point I was probably be like, okay, I need to make everything a bit more crunchy, so I add another saturator. as well to make it louder. And then a final EQ just to make sure I remove all the frequency to don't mess with the bass and the kick bass, and then I boost around here. So yeah. Then we have this one, which is basically exactly the same patch and the same effect and everything. There is just the filter is a little bit more open, so even though there is the modulation, like the sound is a bit more in the high. So I need to put all the effects. So I think I just duplicate the chain. It's always the same. I'm not gonna. All right. One interesting I've done. You can see it's like left, right, like every note is one on the left and the next one on the right, and then etc. etc. Utility is nothing. Okay, remove the low frequency. Why it's playing? Saturation to beef it up, and drum bass I use it as well, like more like saturation effect rather than a drum original bass effect. And you got this nice brassy sound. Alright, and then last section, so this we've seen it before. Last section, SFX. So basically I'm now doing my SFX, my own SFX. I've done a video about that and a rack to how to create your own SFX. I will put the link in the corner. And yeah, basically what I'm doing is, like I've done I explained you for the clap and the hat noise for the background. I put a drum in a lot of reverb. I have a rack especially for that, where I can freeze the tail of the reverb, and then it's making a long reverb, kind of noisy tail, and I just cut it, crop, and reverse, and then I would do that for the shaker, the ride, the clap. I've done this for the harp, the synth, and for example you can, and it's helping introducing element in the track. So yeah.